Welcome back to the United Pubcast for your second leg preview of Manchester United against Nottingham Forest. Manchester United have a 3-goal lead, which makes this quite a comfortable sort of match and comfortable preview. Now, Larry, I was going to get you to apologise to all the listeners, but I'm going to have to shift the apology. One, I was going to apologise for a little bit late, and I was going to blame it on you. But also, I almost had to go the opposite way and say apologies that this preview is a day early. You told me this match was on Wednesday morning, Sydney time. I've just checked my calendar. It's on Thursday morning. So this preview is a day early. So what do you want to apologise for, the early preview or the late start to the stream?
I'm going to say you're welcome to the patrons because we're bringing them the content well ahead of the game, Tom. Everyone's going to be doing their previews in 2 days' time. We're on Australian time. We're bringing to you the news before it becomes news because we're into the future. So you are welcome. Welcome to the future. Welcome to Australia, Sydney. Welcome to the United Podcast.
Do you think it sort of sums up a little bit in terms of the mood around Manchester United at the moment? At the end of the day, this is a League Cup match against Nottingham Forest, and here we are sort of itching at the bit, ready to get going. And I think a couple of years ago, Forest in the League Cup, albeit a semi-final, I think, oh God, you sort of roll your eyes at this match and so can we move on to bigger things on the weekend?
I'm excited for it. Like the title of the video suggests, it might be a great opportunity to see some young players that we either haven't seen a lot of, or who knows, maybe we'll see some new faces. I don't think it's beyond the realms of possibility. Stay tuned for our starting 11 predictions. I'm excited by this one, Tom. I think it's the most unpredictable starting 11 that you could probably name.
I think that's why I like these previews. It's almost the preview. I do enjoy all the content we do, but especially the previews, but especially in games like this where you can't pick it in terms of no one will get 11 from 11 in these predictions. Who knows what Erik ten Hag? But you speak about new faces. Rob, good to see in the chat. He's talking about Jadon Sancho. Monday counselling if Sancho doesn't start, we'll get into Jadon Sancho. But he's just saying, bit of news. I haven't been scrolling through Twitter. We've just signed some prospect from Cardiff, 16 years old. So do let us know a few more details.
Exactly the transfer we needed. Well done, Glazers.
Exactly what deadline. Well, we'll touch on January at the end because all these clubs, Chelsea, Arsenal, splashing in the cash. Manchester United have forgotten they're in a January transfer window. We still need to address that. Good morning, George. Hope all is well. But we'll discuss the January transfer window at the end. But before we get cracking, George, here, aside from it being my first time at Old Trafford, there's genuine excitement and the unpredictability
Congrats,
of the
mate.
lineup.
Hope you enjoy it.
Yeah, no, stay in touch and tell us all about that trip to Old Trafford and, stay in touch with us with all things semi-final. And Sully, good to see you, mate, as always. Now, Larry, we'll get into team selections or predicted 11s or preferred 11s in a sec. The game's over. How much rotation is too much rotation? Because we saw against Astana, play all the kids against Astana. That's what we wanted. They lost. I think it was 2-1 away in Astana. I think Jesse Lingard was the most senior player, scored the goal. So ultimately, you can't just go and play a bunch of kids against a professional team. If we were to play a bunch of kids against Nottingham Forest in the Premier League, we think, what's happened here? We're going to lose the game. If you play a bunch of kids in the League Cup, you think, what's going to happen? You're going to lose the game. So we can afford to lose it. We can afford to lose it quite comfortably. But how much rotation is too much? Like, how much is sort of unprofessional?
Look, at the end of the day, if it was the whole under-18s starting 11, then yeah, I'd be concerned, right? But if he hands out a couple of debuts, I honestly wouldn't be too upset. Have to remember, we're talking about a 4-0 turnaround, right? So one, they need to keep a clean sheet. Two, the focus, the ascendancy has to be with them the pressure is on them really to make anything of this tie. Thirdly, United have to be accused of match fixing to lose this tie. Like, genuinely. I mean, I know you're laughing, Tom. I'm telling you, we need to have 11 match fixers out there in order for United not to reach the League Cup final. So this is a big deal. And for me, it's a case of how much rotation is too much rotation. I'm going to back Ten Hag here. If he wants to go put the starting 18s and David De Gea in that, I'll support it.
Adam here with the show. Good to see you, mate. The midfield will almost be full strength. I disagree. We'll get into my preferred or / predicted. I don't think it'll be full strength. I think I've seen Larry's as well. Our 11s are very different, and I have a feeling there'll be a lot of rotation. But George here, interesting shout, Larry. I also expect Forest may go second string. Do you think Forest maybe throw the tie away, and that will maybe help Ten Hag go a little bit weaker?
It's an interesting point that George makes there. We have to remember Nottingham Forest are really struggling in the Premier League, so I think that has to be obviously their priority and their primary focus. The tie's done. In saying that, there's an argument to say, do they need to keep a bit of face here? If United go on to score another 2-3 goals, that looks really bad in terms of what does that do for that squad's confidence. You could say it was 3-0 against our stronger lineup. There's not really much confidence to be achieved here. But what if they keep a clean sheet? What if those Nottingham Forest players keep a clean sheet at Old Trafford? Well, you know what? It's a draw, but in terms of the confidence it gives them for the rest of the season, might do something. It'll be really interesting to see what Nottingham Forest chooses to do.
Yeah, definitely. Well, we'll bring up our preferred / predicted 11s. We'll talk our way through it. Get yours in the comments below, and we'll dissect it all. And again, might change our opinions. Rob here, Colby Mainu, Garnacho, Palestri, Williams, Butland should all be starting. So we'll get into the starting 11s here. Larry, I'll bring yours up first. A little bit different to mine, and I wouldn't say shocked, but I'm surprised in how I'd say strong you have gone. So I'll bring it up and get you to talk the listeners through your thinking.
Yeah,
that is way too strong in my opinion.
Let me explain. With right back, firstly, I'll explain the justification of my team. Heaton speaks for itself. De Gea doesn't need to play here. Tom Heaton, I think, has been hard done by. He had to play second fiddle to the disaster that was Martin Dubravka. So he deserves every start he gets at the moment. Tom Heaton's a Manchester United fan. He came back to Manchester United because he's a United fan. Let him make whatever appearance he can. It might be his last appearance in a United shirt. So Tom Heaton, I'm backing you. Aaron Wan-Bissaka is the only right back fit at the club. Simple as that. There's no one else that can come in. If Ethan Laird was at Manchester United right now, I'd say throw the young Englishman in there. He's not. I don't think there's anyone under 18s that's really, or under 21s even, that you could say demands a spot. So I think that one picks itself. Rafael Varane. Now, he's our strongest centre-back. I think you and I both agree on that, correct? All right. Well, if that's the case, he needs to play a game of football before we go back to the Premier League. He can't have 10 days off. That might impact his match rhythm. So I think Rafael Varane plays at least 45 minutes here. Luke Shaw has been out for over a week. I think he needs some game time as well. These guys need match rhythm as much as anything. It's a really fine balance between rotated side and keeping the match rhythm in these players' legs. Casemiro, look, Tom, the midfield is interesting. I think we're so injury ravaged, you can't afford to put too many kids in here. And unfortunately, and this is my probably minor criticism of Ten Hag, Iqbal should have gotten an opportunity or more opportunity so far this season, because now we're in a situation where there's not really many options to come in. I've gotten Bruno because there's no one else who can play number 10. And I think Mainu's a no-brainer. I wouldn't play Fred because I think Fred needs to be rested because he's suddenly first choice. There's no one else. Bruno is first choice, but there's simply no one else to deputize. So you know what? I'm going to throw Mainu in. Last time he had to play with, I think it was with Fred and McTominay, if I'm not mistaken. Put him next to the experienced Pro and Casemiro. I think that gives him the opportunity in a semi-final to show us what he can really do. Mainu is an absolute baller. If you haven't seen this kid play properly, passing range, he's got it all. He's physical, quick. He's got the lot. He can be anything he wants to be. I want to see him next to 2 season pros, so there's no pressure on him. And then the front three, Martial, I don't know if he's still in Manchester. Might be in France. Not too sure. But assuming he's in Manchester and assuming he's fit, he needs to play because I think the horse is all that's been in our mind, all 6'6" of him. Garnacho, it's an easy start. Anthony's starting to play some good football. I want to keep that momentum going.
Look, you make it in all isolated players and sort of weighing all the situations up individually. I agree with Varane needs some minutes, so I wouldn't be opposed to Rafael Varane getting 45 minutes. So individually, I can see cases for all those. But I think collectively, again, you can't go too strong. We're Manchester United. We need to go and win football matches. So if we go and win the match, I'll be very strong. But I'll be very happy with that. But it seems a little bit too strong for me. So here, I can see a few of the younger lads getting a start and minutes up. They maybe need to get into the pointy end of the cups. I'll bring mine up here, Larry. Now, I agree with a lot of your thinking there in regards to being strong and sort of players needing minutes, etc. I'm not sure if I've gone too weak. Talk to me. First of all, I'll just bring it back up here. I've gone Tom Heaton. Now, my thinking with Tom Heaton is Tom Heaton or Jack Butland. Tom Heaton's a Man United fan. I can't split the two. I'll go Tom Heaton. Now, maybe we brought Jack Butland in for a reason. Maybe he is above in the pecking order. Flip of a coin. I would like to see Tom Heaton. If Jack Butland's in there, no sort of qualms by me. I'm going Brandon Williams at right back. I think he's in and around the squad playing. I think Wan-Bissaka will play against Crystal Palace. So I think it's a night to give him off. If Diego Dalot is back fit, okay, you throw him back in, but that doesn't seem to be the case. So I'm throwing Brandon Williams in there. He can get the job done. He's solid enough. He's not going to be first choice or anything. He can get through again with a 3-0 lead against Nottingham Forest. I can count on Brandon Williams. Malacia, Luke Shaw, weighing up the fitness debate over Luke Shaw. I'll throw Malacia in. With Maguire, Lindelof, Varane, Martinez, I wouldn't be opposed to Rafael Varane for getting 45 minutes and then maybe swap with Maguire, swap with Lindelof. I think you give Lisandro Martinez the night off, but I wouldn't be opposed to it. Maguire and Lindelof need minutes. And I think they're not going to get minutes in the Premier League, so this is another chance where you can give them minutes. And I'm rotating heavily in midfield. Casemiro, yes, is important, but ultimately he's so important for the Crystal Palace match. We're 3-0 up. I think we played Kobe Mainu, as I said, in the last round against Charlton, I believe it was, so he can get the job done. I don't want to call Nottingham Forest lower league opposition, but they kind of are when you're 3-0 up. So I'll play Kobe Mainu next to Fred. Again, we don't have a deputy for Bruno Fernandes in the number 10. I understand that, but this is a chance to rest him. We're 3-0 up. We don't need Bruno to go and create goals or assist goals. Okay, we need to give him the night off. So I'm going for Kundo Palestri in the middle. I think a lot of us do want to see him. And up front, I just think complete rotation. I think Jadon Sancho, I just want to see him back. Whether Ten Hag is going to shed any light on this, I'm not sure. But I think if he's not going to come back in this game and he's trained and he's fit, I just think, well, when is he going to become available? So I think this is the perfect opportunity. I'd love to see him come back in on the right. Anthony Elanga up front is just simply rest Weghorst, and my money suggests Anthony Martial won't be available. So I'm going Anthony Elanga simply to get Weghorst the night off before Crystal Palace, and a chance for Garnacho to get 90 minutes under his belt because he's been in and out, maybe out a little bit more than he would like over the last couple of weeks. So I think he can play a bit of a starring role in this game. So talk to me. Is that too weak, or can you understand it?
I can understand it. Edgar J's made the point here. We should try Hugo from youth, seeing he's a striker from the academy. I think that's a shout as well. I agree with you there, Edgar. The other one I would probably say is Charlie McNeil. I think both those players probably need a loan. I don't think they're not quite the Mason Greenwood level of impact, are they? I think Charlie McNeil in particular scored lots of goals coming through, obviously signed from Manchester City, but it's kind of slowed down a little bit for him. And I got to say, in the Spain mid-season, pre-season, I don't even know what to call it. Every time I get asked about that, I don't know what to call it, Tom. Mid-season, pre-season, that's the name. He didn't take his opportunity, did he? He started 2 games and he just didn't really do too much. I'm sorry, he didn't start, but he didn't play well. So, I mean, it's interesting. Elanga, he's been linked with a loan. I'd support a young kid getting a chance there. I really would. Interesting one. The only criticism I have of your team, Tom, I agree with what you're saying in principle, but I think Fred and Mainu as 2 sitting midfielders, I don't
think I'm looking at this in regards to I want this to show what Erik Ten Hag wants to play like in 6 weeks' time. I think this is simply about getting through the 90 minutes with getting everyone minutes and people who don't need minutes, getting them. I'm not looking for a performance in this game. I don't need to see us play free-flying football.
Neither of us chose Scott McTominay. I think that's pretty.
He would have been alongside Fred with me, but from the latest information we do have from the last press conference, it did look like he had an injury. So I would have played McTominay next to Fred in regards to simply minutes. It does look well. The latest information is he's injured, so that's the reason I haven't picked him.
I hope Mainu starts, and crucially, I hope he has a good game. I'm telling you, I think there's an opportunity here for a young midfielder to take an opportunity if they're afforded one. We don't know how long Eriksen's going to be out for. Let's assume at best a few weeks. There's a genuine opportunity. If you're a playmaker and you want to be creative, there's an option there. Sanketh, too soon for Zidane Iqbal. Mate, we go watch the last video. We spoke about this at length. We think it's between Iqbal and Mainu, right, Tom? I mean, it has to be one of those two, but I don't think both players are making it at Manchester United.
I just think in regards to this game, I think Mainu is above him at the moment in regards to very sort of closer to a start. Obviously, we've seen that with a start and an appearance off the bench. I think Iqbal will be on the bench here and feature. Now, in terms of do you have to play both of them, Mainu and Iqbal, you'd love to see it. Absolutely, we would. Would you bet on that? Probably not. So I think Zidane Iqbal will feature in this one, but probably from, I think, only one of the youth players. Well, I say youth, Palestri. It's obviously quite a big money signing back in the day. In terms of those academy products, I think only one of them will get the start in midfield. But you'd love to see Mainu and Iqbal, in my opinion.
Are you surprised Iqbal's not featured as much? I mean, I would have thought when we saw him in pre-season, I thought he was actually one of the standouts. He wasn't like a case of he was just making up the numbers. There was times where he actually looked better than Fred and McTominay. I've got to say, I'm quite surprised he hasn't.
Not really. Look, I would have liked to have seen him more, but in terms of pre-season and Premier and senior football are 2 different things. I remember my first season in first grade or under 20s, and first grade I must have been 17, maybe at 16, 17. I was playing first grade in pre-season, and I don't score goals, and I was just banging in goals in pre-season for fun. It was not so. It was easy. I was like the player of the pre-season for our first grade team. I was absolutely killing it. First 45 minutes of the season in the first game, I got hooked at halftime. I couldn't breathe. It was a different game. It was a completely different game. And Zidane Iqbal did show promise on pre-season. Erik Ten Hag, when points are on the line and the real business matters, maybe it's a little bit different. And I think that might be the case with Zidane Iqbal, especially physically. You do look at concerns. We compare him with Christian Eriksen in terms of the body shape and the way they play. we can sometimes be run over a little bit with Christian Eriksen in there. I think Zidane Iqbal would potentially bring those same limitations potentially to midfield, and I think you can only maybe afford one of those. So where does really Zidane Iqbal? You're going to have Eriksen or Iqbal, take your pick. Obviously, Eriksen is going to be above him in the pecking order. So I would have liked to have seen Iqbal, of course, but in terms of surprised, I don't think it really is a case of that. I think it's just an unfortunate nature of the beast is what Manchester United is. But just the last bit on Eriksen before we do move on. We've all seen the footage of him coming out on crutches. I watched the match back, not the match back, but the extended highlights back. And he walked off pretty easily after the injury in terms of substitution down the tunnel. So I'm just thinking, can we put our tinfoil hats? Can we? Well, obviously there's a precautionary aspect to it, but can we put our tinfoil hats on for a moment in regards to January transfer window? Could you see Erik ten Hag playing a bit of mind games with this?
Absolutely. If you're Erik ten Hag, I mean, why wouldn't you? He came out. What post-match game was it? Was it a post-match or a pre-match? He basically was asked, do you want to sign any more players? And he goes, if it was up to me, absolutely, but it's not up to me. That's clear. He took a very direct call out at the Glazers, didn't he? And what's interesting is someone I can't remember who it was. I was discussing this with somebody, and they made the point: is he playing a really strong lineup intentionally, game after game after game, to almost force the Glazers' hand to say, "I don't have options"?
But do we ever play that in our head? We always said that with Jose Mourinho. He's playing Scott McTominay at centre back to say he needs a centre back. Do we just play that in our heads, or do you think managers truly do send messages like that?
I think they do. You know, I think to be a manager, you got to be a little bit wacky. All the best managers do have a little bit of, you know, you have to question whether they're all there or not. No, Tom. All jokes aside, though, Erik ten Hag has rotated his side fairly prominently throughout the season. And suddenly he's really honed that back in, hasn't he? We're going a strong 11 pretty much every single game since the World Cup. I'm wondering, you know what I think it is? I think Ten Hag has looked at our team, looked at the Premier League table and thought, we could be in a title race here. I need some players, but he's just not getting the backing. So I wonder if there is a bit of mind games there.
Speaking of January, well, but before we sort of wrap up with a bit of January transfer news, and I want a bit more info, Rob put in the comments a little bit earlier in regards to have made a signing from Cardiff, one of the young players there. So if you do have any information regarding that, do let us know in the comments. But before we do sort of wrap up on there, I don't know, score predictions in regards to we are 3-0 up. Do we count the aggregate score or not? But what are you feeling in regards to the heavily rotated side? What are you thinking we'll see Thursday morning in Sydney time?
Yeah, that's an interesting one.
Do you go along the line of thinking like me? Would you potentially you'd kind of take a loss in terms of get it over and done with?
Oh man, of course you take a loss. It really depends what sort of team we put out there, right? If you put a decent like a rotated squad, I still expect the result, to be honest, because you're like your Manchester United players, and any version of Manchester United should be beating Nottingham Forest. If he picks the under 18s and the under 21s, well then, you know, I'm not going to have too many qualms about a 2-0 loss.
That'll be a bit hairy, the 2-0 loss. I might take a 2-1. Chris,
Tom,
here,
I think
1-1.
a victory here is a kid takes his chance. I want to see a young player come in and absolutely boss the game. Like if that happens, I'll call it a win, regardless of the score. Yeah,
definitely. Well, I do want to get into the January transfer window because, my God, every club is sort of panicking on deadline day except us. Manchester United just calling it a Tuesday or a Wednesday, whatever day it is. So we'll go Edgar here, Tillemans on loan maybe is obviously a potential shout. Adam here, who did you play for, Tom? In pre-season that year would have been at the old Northern Spirit when Northern Spirit were with Central Coast Mariners. So that was back in my Northern Spirit days. But January transfer window, Larry. Quesada, I'm not sure what the latest is there in regards to Chelsea went for him. Arsenal went for a little bit more in terms of a heftier bid. Then suddenly that's rejected by Brighton. The player doesn't want to play for Brighton. He wants to move to Chelsea or Arsenal. So I'm not sure what's going to happen there if one of the clubs are going to stump up a little bit more cash on deadline day. Anthony Gordon from Everton has gone for big money to Newcastle. I'm not completely sold on that. But Newcastle fans seem to think they've got a hell of a player there. So it's all happening, and you go through Manchester United in any transfer window. We dominate the headlines no matter what. Frankie de Jong had 6 stories a day about him for 3 months. Like Manchester United dominate the headlines in any transfer window. Ultimately, now though, are we linked to anyone?
We're not, because we're just simply not in the market. I wonder. The only one, Tom, the only one I'd say keep an eye on though, Yuri Tillman. I think with the Eriksson injury, again, depending how bad it is, yeah, there you go, Edgar J's on it. I think he's got 6 months left on his deal. I think there's something to be done with Leicester. Absolutely, there's something to be done with Leicester. That's the only realistic one I could see. Other than that, it's got to come from within, doesn't it?
Would you be just on that? Sorry, just on that bit with Tielemans. Does it change your thinking there whether we buy him or loan him? Some the comment there from Edgar says get him on loan. Does that change you? You wouldn't sign him, but you would get him on loan, like in terms of now it's panic at the moment, but he's not part of the plan at the moment. You'd think it would be a deadline day signing. So do you want to invest that kind of money in an actual permanent signing, or let's just bring him in for a few months and see what happens, evaluate it in a few months' time?
Well, let's broaden out that question. Am I assuming that this is under the Glazers' ownership or under a new owner? So because if we're under Glazer ownership, well, they're going to say, well, if we're going to buy you this player, well, that's coming out of the summer transfer budget. But if this is under new owners, ambitious owners who are actually going to invest in the club, then I'd like to think that we're going to buy this player. He's going to be a squad player next season. We're going to ship out Fred, McTominay, whoever. We're going to improve the squad and still give you the elite midfielder that you still need in your starting 11 in the summer. Now, depending which side of that argument we're sitting on, then my answer changes. I'm going to assume that new owners come in because I like to be an optimist. And I say, go get Youri Tielemans. I think he walks into our starting 11 right now. Great option at worst. And then come in the summer. If he's our backup, we're in a really strong spot.
Yeah, well, look, I definitely welcome Tielemans. I just don't know about in terms of how to view his season this year. Obviously, he's a fantastic player. Obviously, has tremendous quality. Is he having a bad season, or is he part of Leicester's having a bad season? And no matter who's there.
Let me put it this way to you. Let me ask you this question. You're 25 years old. I think he's 25, 26, oldest, right? You're talented. You've proven yourself in Europe time and time again. And you're part of a side that when you joined were competing for European positions. Last season flirted with relegation at times. And this season, again, mid-table, bottom half of the Premier League table. How on earth is he meant to keep his motivation up? You could say
exactly, but that's where, in terms of when players go through spells, how do they bounce back? We don't have that evidence. He might bounce back to become world class. He might never bounce back. I'm just thinking, I don't know how to evaluate his season this year in regards to, is it because of Leicester's sort of downward spiral that he's not been able to perform, or has he actually had a bad season himself? Like I don't know. I don't watch too much of Leicester City.
Then. All right, let me ask you this question in a different way. What Leicester player right now would walk into Manchester United starting 11? Name one.
I wouldn't take any. Now maybe someone thrown out.
So if you know that as a fan, why is Youri Tielemans meant to be motivated to play in that side? Do you take
rephrase that question? Rephrase the question. I'm lost.
If you're not going to take, you wouldn't take a single player from Leicester right now into United's 11, correct?
The starting 11.
Yeah. So you wouldn't take a single player in Leicester starting 11. So if you're Youri Tielemans, you've been part of that Leicester side for 4 years. You've seen them go from competing for Champions League, Europa League, nearly making the Champions League, flirted with relegation last season. You continue to stay there. You wanted to leave. You see that they don't invest once again this season. How on earth do you stay motivated? You can't challenge yourself to be at the best of your game when the owners don't put players around you that allow you to be your best. I think he's just looking for a challenge. And I'm telling you, you put him into a top side right now, you're going to see the player that we've seen for years. This guy,
but it just comes down to my question. If he is for the last 6 months not being motivated, I just think, does he have it in him to be remotivated? Like, what type of player does he turn into? Like, I'm just thinking, what has he developed into? Like, he might have
that Leicester badge for a Manchester United badge. Yeah. I think you can see a lot of things happen. I mean, it didn't happen for Harry Maguire, granted, but I think that's a different situation.
Adam here with a shout, and maybe again, I don't know how to weigh this up in regards to weighing up how much is Tielemans, how much is Leicester City. But it brings up a shout in regards to his work rate player. People call Pogba lazy. Wait till they see Youri Tielemans. Don't think he's ever sprinted in his life. It will be interesting in regards to that. Chris here, tinfoil hats. On we come out and said we are broke, so we stopped getting linked to everyone and overpaying. Yes, I think we did come out and sort of say that in regards to Rich Arnold, but I think in terms of you do look at the books, I think the books prove we are broke in regards there isn't too much money there to spend. So, but I do take your point, and it has kind of been refreshing in regards to not having to sort of listen to sort of these tedious rumours every second day. But also now that we hit a day out from deadline day, panic is starting to set in, and you do look at our squad and the state of our midfield, and we do need reinforcements. So the panic has set in, and we do need to go sort of splash some cash. If you're a betting man, Larry, do we bring anyone in, or do you think Weghorst is the only one?
I can't see it. I mean, I would love to. You know what? Would you take? All right, Tom. Let's play fantasy. Let's play fantasy transfers for a moment. Would you take Paul Pogba back right now on loan? This in Magic Land. You nearly spat your water out. Just hear me out. Hear me out. I'm not telling you I would. I'm not telling you I would take Paul Pogba back. But Juventus just got deducted points. They're not going to make Europe this season. If you're Erik ten Hag, I think Eriksen's injured. Would you not take Paul Pogba back on a 6-month loan? Back. What do you think that would do? Do you think he'd improve under Erik ten Hag?
I think Martial probably has a better fitness record at the moment. I'd bet on Martial being fit and available before Paul Pogba. I haven't seen him in a Juventus shirt yet, which is crazy when you think about it. But you definitely have to keep an eye.
He has, right? He has played.
I think he played in pre-season. I don't think he has. Maybe he has. I haven't seen him in Juventus. Yeah, I don't think he's on crutches anymore, but I don't think Paul Pogba's played. Maybe he has. I don't watch the Serie A too closely, but I think you do need to keep an eye on the Juventus situation in regards to Juventus and also Chelsea. In regards to Chelsea, going to have to sell players eventually. In regards to they've got a squad of 44 players. They're going to have to sell players, and is there anyone at Chelsea who potentially comes in and makes Manchester United a stronger side? That there surely has to be. Who that player is, I'm not sure, but Chelsea and Juventus, I think they're two situations Manchester United need to be all over. But before we do wrap up, Larry, the most important discussion today in regards to discuss Forest, Man United, all these January transfers, transfer windows. First thing for me, Larry, Sully here brings it up. Liverpool need a whole new team. Let's not discuss what they need in regards to, yes, they do need a whole new team. Let's just discuss Liverpool in general. Gone out to Brighton, and it was one of those ones I think we brought up on the last pod we did, or a couple of days ago, in regards to Liverpool have Brighton next, and we're thinking, well, yeah, Liverpool are going to get knocked out of the FA Cup. Now, how can you, the fall from grace to sort of expect Brighton to go and beat them? They've beaten them twice in the last couple of weeks. But to expect Liverpool to go to Brighton with a strong team and expect Brighton to win, I think that's what sort of Liverpool and Chelsea and Arsenal fans looked at us at over the last couple of seasons, where if we went to Brighton, we would think in the back of our mind, yeah, no, we can turn it around here. This is the day Martial gets firing. This is the day sort of it clicks under Jose Mourinho and we'll sort of get the victory. Ultimately, we lose and we think, oh, God, what's happened here? The sort of more depression. The other clubs are laughing because they saw this coming. We're now seeing what's going to happen at Chelsea and Liverpool. And I think it is absolutely beautiful.
On Liverpool,
I think Jurgen Klopp's realised what all of us United fans have been saying for years. Trent Alexander-Arnold isn't a good footballer. He's brilliant on the ball. He's technically
he's a good footballer. He's a shit right.
The football is the package, right? The football is the package. Like technical ability, yeah. I mean, he's got world-class ability. That guy can whip a ball in. Absolutely, he can. Great delivery. But he's a right back. And for a right back, he just gets exposed time and time again. Tom, he got hooked by Jurgen Klopp. And
was that did he show a bit of disdain or something? I heard about that substitution that he sort of walked on.
I didn't see it. And pretty much frowned all game at Jurgen.
No.
But it was the right call. Like he just gets exposed time and time again. And let me ask you this. I mean, I've seen Trent, and I'm not one to question players' motivations or their professionalism. I've seen Trent Alexander-Arnold on many YouTube videos this year. I've seen him popping up here and there on different kind of channels. And I'm just like, your team have been struggling. You personally have been struggling defensively. Like, work on your game. What are you doing?
It's one of those things. When you're winning, you can afford those things. But like we've seen with Paul Pogba and Jesse Lingard, those things are fine when you're winning, not the Monday after you lose to Liverpool. So I think you do have to find that balance. And I'll just throw the question to you and people in the live chat. I think there's two reasons. I'm not sure which one is which, but I think it comes down to two things in terms of where has the downfall for Liverpool started? And look, who knows, they might turn things around. It doesn't look like they will, but at the moment, it could just be a bad season. But let's say this is the start of a trend, which potentially does look like, / from our point of view, hope it looks like. But two things. Is this sort of, I think George brings up a point we'll bring up a little bit later in regards to FSG and our comparisons with the Glazers and a sort of a result of the way they run the running of the club in terms of their ownership and American investment? Or is it a case of which I think is potentially just as important or just as pivotal in regards to their success is their downfall, in regards to the way those players, and sort of they won it all. Literally, we don't like to say it, they literally won it all. Not in the one season, which they try to pretend they did. They won the Premier League, they won the Champions League, they won the Club World Cup, League Cup, FA Cup. They literally have won every trophy available over the last couple of years. So fair play to them. I'll still sort of ram home that they didn't win it in the same season. But okay, that's a debate for another day. But in regards to that success, they won it all. But I look at Trent Alexander-Arnold. He knows he's won it all, and he walks around like he's king shit. And I just think, hang on, you need to go do it again to be regarded as great. You can't do it in one season. And I just think, in terms of the success, in my opinion, to Virgil van Dijk, to Trent Alexander-Arnold, especially to Mo Salah, I think they're walking around like they've done it all. Now, yes, they can look back and say, well, I've got the medals to prove I did. But in regards to constant success over a career, I think they're walking around like they've got nothing to prove. And ultimately, if that is the case, they will be found out. And I'm glad it's happening.
I think the downfall can be attributed to a number of things. Pep Guardiola did an interview a few years ago. I think it was with Sky. I could be wrong on that. But what Pep Guardiola said is you cannot go a single season with the exact same players following a Premier League win or a Premiership win. He had that principle in Spain, in Germany, and in England. And then he was questioned further, and they said, why is that, Pep? And he goes, you cannot keep the same group of players motivated. It's just impossible. So I think that there's an aspect to that. But what I will put the primary downfall to Liverpool down to, Tom, they spent really poorly this season. Yeah. They spent £100 million, right? £100 million on an absolute donkey. You laugh. It was horrible money spent. Like United spent, I want to put this in a comparison, right? And again, why United get criticized, because we're simply the biggest club in the world, right? When United signed Romelu Lukaku, £75 million, do you know how many goals he finished with that season?
Yeah, decent season in regards to a return. Yeah.
26 goals. Now, you can call him a flat track bully. You can say he's got a bad first touch, and you can, he tries to control the ball in Manchester and it lands at Sydney Airport, and you'd be right in that. But you know what? Romelu Lukaku scores goals. You can't argue with that statistic. Darwin Núñez offers nothing.
They're even starting to turn it. A couple of weeks ago, Liverpool, which we probably did with players like Romelu Lukaku, with players who haven't been up to it, we try and convince ourselves and sort of spread sort of false narratives. Liverpool, maybe 5 or 6 weeks ago, was starting to say, when they realised how bad Darwin Núñez was, they'll start to think, oh, no, he's creating havoc. No, he's got a fantastic work rate. Yeah, he's got good movement. It's going to come. He's getting on the end of chances. They'll end up falling for it. But after the game today, I've seen a lot of Liverpool fans go, oh, my God, no, this guy's just shit.
Yeah, the other thing with Liverpool is, and to be honest, I've looked at their team for probably 2 seasons now, and I've said, that midfield is shite.
Not only midfield, apparently, I saw an article in terms that went through their contract situations as well with the dynamic of that midfield. It's a mess.
All of it. Their midfield's old, and then the young player, they play Harvey Elliott there, with all due respect. Come on. He's not a Liverpool caliber player. I mean, I hope they think he is, because if you keep picking him, I mean, they'll just fall lower and lower down the Premier League table. But in all seriousness, they've really fallen off, and I think it's just been such poor investment. And can I say, Jurgen Klopp, let's put a lot of the blame at him for all his moaning, blaming the wind and the moisture and the humidity in the grass and whatever else he's going to blame tomorrow. This is his squad. Outside of Jordan Henderson, that starting 11 is all players he's bought or promoted into the Liverpool team. That's Jurgen Klopp's side.
That would be.
So
yeah, no, look, it would be. He's been there for God knows how long. So definitely would be his squad. But ultimately, what do you think is sort of the prime sort of sweet spot in terms of the modern day duration for a manager? The modern day manager, how long is like we all dream in terms of seeing the next Alex Ferguson, 26 years. Ultimately, that's not sort of conducive to the modern game. But ultimately, then you look at maybe successful managers in Spain or Italy, maybe do 3-year stints and then move on. But ultimately, you look at the two most successful in recent seasons in England, Pep Guardiola and Jurgen Klopp have been there 6, 7, 8 years, sort of whatever it is. So what is the sweet spot? Is there a sweet spot, or is it all dependent on the club and the investment they get?
I don't think. I'm probably the exception rather than the norm here. I personally think a manager can do a longer time if a club is willing to accept that there has to be rebuilds. And if there has to be a rebuild, then that means you have to allow for a season or two of underperformance, for a lack of better term. The expectation particularly, I mean, look, let me caveat this a little bit. Sir Alex Ferguson is the greatest manager I have ever seen in my lifetime, and will never see a manager like him again. In club football terms, absolutely not. What I will say, though, about Sir Alex Ferguson is the competition in the Premier League now isn't what it was when Sir Alex Ferguson was having Manchester United finishing first, second, third, right? So, I mean, when United were at their peak, you had Newcastle at times, Blackburn for a short period of time. Then it was predominantly Arsenal, and then later Chelsea, and then in the very latter stages, Manchester City. But that was kind of the order. There was always one, at best two teams that were pushing United all the way. And even in that case, United went 3 seasons where they went fighting for the Premier League. And if you remember at the time, Tom, 5, 6, 7, there were calls for Fergie's head. And that was back then, without Twitter, without Facebook. There were people questioning, is Fergie's time up?
Yeah.
You got to have a board that is willing to accept that when football is cyclical, you got to allow a down season or two. You just have to. I take the piss out of Liverpool. I'll forever take the piss out of Liverpool. Does Jurgen Klopp deserve time if they don't make Europe? Yeah, of course he does. Look at what he's done. He's done really well. Competing with Manchester City as well. He deserves some credit, yeah? So, yeah, I think a manager can stay for 2 months or they can stay for 10 years. The reality is, how patient is a club willing to be? Mikel Arteta, perfect example. He came 8th, 5th, and now he's top of the Premiership. Yeah. What other top 6 club would have stuck with him? You tell me.
Yeah, not many. I think a lot of United fans would like to think Manchester United, but then you look over the past, Louis van Gaal was walking up a set of stairs to collect one of the trophies and they sacked him. So patience is very easy to say you have. Ultimately, when money and sort of results are on the line, that patience does wear thin. But we'll start to wrap up in a second. Chris here is right. I judge a book by its covers in regard to Jordan Pickford, and I try not to in regards to try to give everyone a fair shout. But I think he's on the money here as well with Harvey Elliott. Just looks like a shithouse and is. So I'm glad he is at Liverpool. Same as Curtis Jones. He's horrible. Yeah, they had high hopes for him and he's fallen off a cliff, thank God. And Adam brings up a little bit earlier in regards to, we were talking about Liverpool's success and they were trying to sort of put it all, they have like 6 trophies. They try to pretend they won them in one season. It was over a course of about 4 years. But what they did in 30 years, Manchester United did in 10 days. And you can't forget that in regards to when they start talking trebles and success. He is right. We did that in one weekend in May. It took them 4 years to do that sort of stuff. So a few more things before we do wrap up. Edgar here, I agree. We don't need to sign, promote. Maybe we find a gem again. Well, maybe it's Garnacho. Maybe it's Kobe Mainoo. Maybe Zidane Iqbal comes on and scores a double against Nottingham Forest. George here. There's 2 ways to look at successful manager stints, either 26 years like Fergie or 3 or 4 years here or there like Ancelotti. Yep, well, different things for different clubs. There's no right or wrong answer. It's what the club needs at the time and what the fans do appreciate. But Larry, before we do wrap up, we've just discussed January transfer window. We've done Nottingham Forest preview. Is there anything else Manchester United related I have missed or have missed you want to touch on before we finish?
I love Erik ten Hag, Tom. That's all I want to say.
He's beautiful, mate. He's beautiful. And look, I would just love nothing more. Before the Europa League final under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, it got to the point where I said, okay, well, I was a staunch sort of Ole in supporter. But ultimately I said, look, if he has to go, he has to go. I sort of backed that decision. I just want to see him lift the trophy. We went to Villarreal. It didn't work, and it was heartbreaking to see him sacked without lifting that trophy. I've got to the stage now. I think Erik ten Hag will be very successful in the future, but all I want now is just to him lift a trophy. And even I'd go back to maybe even a Scott McTominay or Harry Maguire. Maybe the future is away from Old Trafford for those players, but in regards to what they've been through and sort of been fortunate enough, obviously down in Melbourne, have maybe 1 or 2 interactions with them before they go in May or June or July. Just have a photo of the League Cup with them. I think that is something now. I think I'm so desperate for this League Cup victory. It almost has that feeling under Solskjaer before the Villarreal match.
Yeah, I think so. Ed's made an interesting comment here. Nico Zanlilo or Gravenberch. Gravenberch is a really interesting
They're saying that on loan. What's happened at Bayern Munich there? Because obviously one of Ten Hag's players from Ajax. Why isn't he playing?
Not playing. Don't know. He's out of favour for whatever reason, and he absolutely bossed it for Ten Hag.
The reason I would say Gravenberch is obviously when Erik ten Hag was signed, I'm sure all of us were all over YouTube watching Ajax and how they play sort of thing. And you watch Gravenberch in midfield, oh my God, this guy's a player. Now, obviously, Bayern Munich signed him. Obviously, shows what a good player is if they invested big money in him. If he's not playing at Bayern Munich, now sometimes that's not going to be the easiest team to get into. So you can sort of afford him some sort of leeway not playing there. But ultimately, I haven't seen too much of him. I've seen YouTube highlights, but if there is a relationship with Ten Hag there and Manchester United and Bayern Munich can come up with some type of deal, that is something I would be looking at in regards to, okay, Donny van der Beek's not there. I would be looking at that, but I just don't understand how Bayern Munich bring a player in for that money and then loan him out a couple of months later. I just can't see that situation. I'm not sure what the situation is there in regards to maybe there is something real behind it. I just seen the Twitter rumors and I can't see that happening.
Well, if he's out of favor, he's out of favor. Can I just say a massive thank you to everyone watching. During this stream time, we've had 4 subscribers. We're only 17 away from 1,500 subscribers. So massive thank you to those listening. If you haven't subscribed yet, make sure you do. We give you content from Australia and we talk about Manchester United. Where else are you going to find that?
And there'll be more content this week because we're a day early on this preview. So we've got to think of some more content throughout the week to keep everyone happy.
Tom,
I'll tell you what I'm thinking.
In Australia, we know the result before it happens because we're living ahead of time. So if you want to know the result...
You speak of Australia, tell you what I think my next video should be in terms of maybe like a 5 reasons video sort of thing, but why Lisandro Martinez is a cult hero. And reason number 1 is that bucket hat.
I got time for a bucket hat, I tell you.
But don't you think he looks like someone you'd have in your backyard cricket team when he's sort of rocked up to Old Trafford in that?
Tom, I only play good sports, so I don't play cricket, I'm sorry to say. But what I will say is, I love the signing. Okay, you know what? I might do a video on why Erik ten Hag is going to build a legacy at Manchester United. And I'm going to give you a small hint. You and the patrons, Tom, I'm going to give you a small hint why. Look at the way Casemiro celebrates. Look at the way Lisandro Martinez celebrate. Haven't seen that shit in a good while. Yeah, haven't seen that shit since I was the word teen in my age.
Who do you think is the obvious answer is Erik ten Hag in terms of what he's come in and instilled? Obviously, that I think is the correct answer. But is there something else? Do you think someone like Casemiro or Lisandro Martinez, or is it someone in-house who's maybe sort of developed maybe Bruno Fernandes? We haven't even discussed Bruno Fernandes' captaincy in recent weeks. Over the last year, we've discussed, I've been on here saying I love Bruno Fernandes more than most, but I don't think he's a Manchester United captain. I think in regards to the way he's handled himself and sort of performed as a captain this season, I think has gone under the radar. But that's a debate for another day. But do you think it's Erik ten Hag in terms of has brought this, which obviously he has, or do you think there is an individual who has maybe stepped up and maybe sort of really brought it on the pitch? Because it's infectious.
Yeah, it is. I think it's a few things. First thing is the manager set the standard. I think the way what might have been crucial in Erik ten Hag's managerial run? The Ronaldo situation. I think if he got that wrong, it had the potential to really unravel. Because if look at back to Ralf Rangnick 6 months ago. Like Ralf Rangnick couldn't control him really. I mean, he went to Portugal before a game and still started. Like he left the squad. I'm on holidays, thanks.
But that's where I think off the back of the Solskjaer signing, when the club obviously turned on Ronaldo, when Solskjaer was sacked, in terms of maybe forcing him out the door, in terms of a lot of the leaks, in terms of painting Ronaldo in a bad light. When Erik ten Hag came in, whatever his views towards if he wanted to use Ronaldo or not use Ronaldo, he had a get out of jail free card. He had an option on how to get Ronaldo out of the club. In regards to he chose that option, proved 100% to be the right one. But in terms of it was such a tough job for Erik ten Hag, but also it was just sort of laid out on the table for him. It was the only way he could deal with it. He was going to sort of create a lot of controversy and enemies, but ultimately it was the perfect way to play it. But it was kind of the cards were dealt in his favour. I thought Erik ten Hag, ultimately I want to say it was the most difficult job in regards to you're dealing with Ronaldo, obviously, but I also look back and strip everything back and think it was quite easy for Erik ten Hag. It was the only way to deal with it.
It's an interesting one. I think, you know how we said in preseason he gave Maguire the rope to hang himself? I think he did the same thing with Ronaldo.
They're doing Ronaldo and Maguire, different situations, but in terms of tricky, in terms of it could go one or two ways, but really in regards to the mood, in terms of fans will always back the manager over the player.
All right.
It was really the only way ten Hag could deal with it.
Let me put it to you this way. Ronaldo, after he walked off Tottenham game, he obviously had the shits for being told to come on with 3 minutes to go. He went down the tunnel. Let me tell you what Ten Hag did next. Suspended him for a game, started him in the next game. Bruno then wasn't available for the game after that. He gave him the captaincy. Ronaldo failed to score. Then Ronaldo got benched again because he didn't score, which is his job because that's all he offers a team these days. And then Ronaldo went on national television with the biggest wanker in England and spat his dummy out. He said he wanted to play at the top of European football and then signed for a team in Saudi Arabia. Like Ronaldo's the one that looks stupid here because actually Ten Hag if you actually look at it, Ten Hag gave Ronaldo every opportunity to force his way into the 11. Ronaldo's the one who didn't take his chance. It wasn't Ten Hag being stubborn.
Oh, no, that's what I mean in regards to everything, with the financial situation, the off-field situation, but also the on-field sort of dynamic. It was a no-brainer from Erik Ten Hag. Like, as you say, give them a little bit of rope. And I think the exact same thing with Harry Maguire. Now, the Harry Maguire needs to be managed a little bit more. I think the end game for Ronaldo and Erik Ten Hag was to reach a situation which forced him out of the club. So both parties sort of wanted that, ended up getting that result. With the Harry Maguire situation, I think it's forced on Erik Ten Hag wanting to bench Harry Maguire, and Harry Maguire maybe wanting to get on the field rather than leave the club. So it's a little bit of a different sort of end game. But in regards to getting what the manager wants, the manager's dealing with it perfectly.
Let me make a final point and a question to you, Tom. Ronaldo left. We then returned from the World Cup. And Erik Ten Hag, post-match against Burnley, was it? In the League Cup? What did he say? Marcus Rashford should be scoring 20 goals in the Premier League. Not 20 goals this season, 20 goals in the Premier League. He says that right after Ronaldo leaves. And now Rashford walks out to Old Trafford like he's Superman. His chest puffed out, feels confident. Thomas Partey's feet are still stuck in the Emirates turf looking for the ball. Do you think Erik Ten Hag intentionally knew he needed a star man and said, I'm going to put all those eggs in the Marcus Rashford basket?
I don't think the eggs are in Marcus Rashford's basket in regards to, there's no doubt Erik Ten Hag and Man United looked to the January transfer window to bring a replacement for Ronaldo in. Now, I don't think at the start of the window, Wout Weghorst was top of the list. I think there are other players at the top of the list, and I think we'll see a clearer list in the summer. So I think that is ultimately the replacement for the 25, 30 goals in the league. Now, Marcus Rashford has been brilliant. I think he's been motivated brilliantly by Erik Ten Hag. But I'm not sure anyone could have foreseen this. Now, I'm sure Erik Ten Hag believed in to get a little bit more out of Marcus Rashford, but I don't think he could have envisaged this much more. But as I said, this is Marcus, and long may this continue. I'm absolutely loving what I'm seeing from Rashford, but I don't think anyone could have foreseen Marcus Rashford's form increase the way it has post-World Cup.
It's interesting you say that. I'm not surprised by it, I got to say. I thought the way the season, before we had the World Cup break,
I'm surprised by the numbers. The performances have been a nice gradual increase, which is almost more pleasing for me in regards to I'm seeing progression. The numbers are cherry on the cake.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose I hear what you're saying. I look at what Marcus did under Solskjaer in terms of his goal return, and I thought, I mean, he has to return back to that this season. Let's not forget how bad Marcus was 12 months ago. His United career was in the balance. Let's not change history, right? Marcus needed to have a big season. He needed to score lots of goals to cement his position, because otherwise his contract negotiation now, be having a very different discussion if this was happening 12 months ago. So it's interesting. I wonder, I mean, only Erik Ten Hag knows, but I wonder if he thought, Marcus can't be my star man while ever Ronaldo's here. And I just wonder, did Ronaldo leave and he thought, I'm going to make sure Marcus Rashford's my star man now. I'm going to let him know that he is...
Do you think, which I agree, but do you think he views Rashford as a star man? Like in regards to, do you think he...
Yeah. Look at what he said in his first few press conferences. Before the tour, I think. He basically was speaking glowingly of Rashford.
Obviously, Rashford is the star man. I'm not taking that he's not the star man, but in terms of Ten Hag's vision, and maybe it is. I just don't see that now. Maybe that's from a collective thing. I don't think Ten Hag needs that Ronaldo up front or Zlatan Ibrahimovic or that star man. So I don't think he's walked into Old Trafford and say Rashford's going to be my star man, but maybe he has seen something. Do I see that as a striker or as a left winger? I think that might dictate things. Obviously, if Harry Kane comes in or this Osherman from Napoli comes in, maybe that changes the dynamic in regards to who we rely on for goals. Because as I said, in terms of when you're weighing up, you put a team on paper, it's usually the striker is the one you want 25, 30 goals, not your left winger. Now, obviously, modern football does dictate a lot of your left wingers or right wingers do provide a bit more of a goal threat than they used to back in the day. But ultimately, in regards to the way Erik Ten Hag has dealt with that situation, the Ronaldo situation, the Maguire situation, Marcus Rashford, in regards to, there's no doubt, you just mentioned then, in regards to the situation he found himself in terms of 90% of the fan base sort of questioning his future. On here, we sort of weighed up bids from PSG. If PSG come in with a bit of money, we both sat here and said, look, we want Rashford to go become a club legend, but if money's on the table, you're going to have to seriously consider it, especially with the new owner coming in. But my last question to wrap up, Erik Ten Hag doesn't get his way in the transfer window. We don't get a Gravenberg, we don't get another attacker coming in the next day or two. If that's Jose Mourinho, toys out of the pram, and he's going to show that sort of bad behaviour in the coming weeks. So that through that team selection, through outbursts in the press conference. Oh, look what I've been dealt with. I have this striker. If I was able to get my striker a couple of days ago, I would have won that game. How does Erik ten Hag behave? Now, I think the obvious answer and correct is he'll just get on business as usual and sort of deal with what he has. I think that is very obvious. But could you see a potential change in regards to the outlook of the way we view Erik ten Hag if we don't get a body in the next couple of days?
No, I don't think so. I think Ten Hag is different than Mourinho and Conte in the sense, I think he represents what he wants his players to be. After the Arsenal match, he could have come out and said, look at the progress we've made. It's still a process. We're not there yet. I'm proud of the way the team played. No, you know what he came out and said? No, this was a poor result. We should have won this game.
Yeah.
He's telling his players, this is the mentality. I demand trophies. He said it in yesterday's game. He goes, the goal's to win trophies. That is clear. I love Ten Hag. I love the way he talks. I like his little after he finishes a statement.
I think that there's a great balance in regards to criticism and praise. Sometimes if I was a player and you can understand a manager coming out and setting high standards after you win, or no, the win wasn't good enough. Okay, we played well, but we can do better. You can understand that. That's textbook management in whatever field, obviously. But there is also that little bit of praise. And now sometimes you maybe want a little bit more praise if you're a player, but obviously you don't know what's happening behind the scenes. Maybe Ten Hag is walking into the dressing room after every game, taking his shirt off, celebrating with all the players. We don't know. But I think there is a very good balance in regards to being critical, but also there is that praise there. And I think hope that praise is been driven home at the training ground because the players do need to feel confident. We've seen Casemiro come out in support of Anthony, saying Anthony has had a few rough weeks in regards to perception, but in reality, he's been very good in recent weeks, so he needs support. So I think that stems from Erik ten Hag, the characters he's brought in, the quality he's brought in, not just in the players, but what he's brought himself to the club.
I will do a video on this. So if you are new and you're not subscribed, make sure you are subscribed because I'm gonna dissect into Ten Hag a little bit, Tom. And I've got a very clear idea of where this season really could have turned for the worse, but it turned for the better because of some of the decisions that the Dutchman has made. And I'm really looking forward to ripping into all of that because I think that because the season's been so weird with the World Cup. It's so easy to forget where we were if you actually think to where this season started. Like I said, if you're not subscribed, subscribe. Help us get to 2,000 before the end of the season. Help us get a 1,500 by the end of this video because it's going to be a good viewing, I tell you.
Well, make sure you are subscribed. Larry will give you a detailed analysis on that and Erik ten Hag and why Manchester United will be great again. And I'll give you why Lisandro Martinez looks good in a bucket hat. So stay tuned for those. But good shout here. I haven't thought of this, but I think he's bang on here, Ed. When Erik ten Hag speaks, a little bit of Fergie and Jose, but a good mix in regards to the good part of Jose, the good part of Fergie. I think that's a good mix. I think when we think of Jose Mourinho in press conferences, we think of just throwing everyone under the bus. But there was always a good tactical insight and a bit of a message behind everything Jose said. And Fergie with obviously that authority. I do think that is a good mix there. But obviously we do need, for the perfect press conference, we do need to see Erik ten Hag have a few red wines like Louis van Gaal.
Ed, are you Ed, or Eddie? Can you confirm? Ed, Tom, do you know what I'm talking about?
I don't. Please enlighten me.
Did you not watch Ed, and Eddie on Cartoon Network when you were like 5?
That rings a bell. No, I didn't. Maybe I'm a little bit past that.
So there was... All right, hold on. I'm going to get a photo of this. This is the United Pubcast. This is captivating content, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to show you who Ed, and Eddie are.
Well, while you're talking about Ed, and Eddie, I'll bring up Edgar here in regards to Ten Hag as a Dutchman, straightforward with people. And I think that is a huge part. I think Dutch have a huge history with Manchester United, a huge connection. I think obviously France and Netherlands have a huge contingent in regards to the history. The two highest sort of contributions to Manchester United outside of Britain or outside of Ireland, Scotland, UK, etc. So I think that is a huge thing. I think Manchester United have a great respect, or not a great respect for Dutch people, respect for everyone. But in regards to, there is a professionalism, there is an honesty to them in regards to maybe you don't sort of perceive other sort of nations. And that's obviously not disrespectful to any, but I think there is a definite way I think Dutch people sort of do carry themselves in regards to football. I think it just has a football feel to it. But Ed Key, obviously agreeing with you. I did, in regards to watching that. So a little bit before my time. If you got the screen to share there with us before we wrap up?
Yeah, I do. Give me 2 seconds. All right, I'm just gonna.
Well, he's here. I was Eddie as a kid. That Ed and Eddie has followed me my whole life.
All right, hold on.
You need to send me a link to this. After my time.
I got Google Maps open. Hold on, I need to connect my second screen. I know I've really got my priorities right, ladies and gentlemen. Bear with me.
Let me just Google on my phone.
Change your lives right here. This is why we are the best Manchester United content there is on YouTube. Who interacts with fans like this, hey? You tell me. All right, give me a second. Ed, I'm gonna need you to tell us which one you are. All right, here we go. Are you ready, Tom? This is the big moment. Okay.
Apparently, I never watched it. I've seen the characters. I saw the characters, but I don't know who they are.
All right, here we go. Ed, and Eddie. Can you see this? You seeing over here? So we got Ed.
I think I recognise the faces, but I couldn't tell you who's who. I never watched an episode.
So the tall one there, that's Ed, 1D. You got Ed with the 2Ds is this geek-looking dude. Not a bucket hat. That's a beanie. So not Lissandro Martinez. And then we've got Fred over here, Eddie.
Which one most resembles Ed Woodward?
Don't know.
In regards to character.
Probably the guy who walks around with a plank, which is the tall one. He's got no brain.
Do you think so much of this, and look, this is supposed to be a 10-minute stream in regards to a preview. Here we are, 55 minutes. How much of this sort of positivity around Manchester United is off the back of the exit of Ed Woodward? Surely it's a coincidence or not?
I think Richard Arnold is quietly doing a great job. I think he sat down with the fans, with those gentlemen who, look, personally, I didn't agree with them recording him. I thought it was a pretty dog act, if I'm being honest. But nonetheless, he sat down with fans. He bought them a beer. He basically said, I want to do everything I can to get the club to where it needs to be. He spoke about gaining some capital to reinvest into the club. So I think Richard Arnold wants Manchester United to be successful. At the end of the day, fans lazily will be like, oh, Glazer puppet, works for the Glazers, whatever. Tom, if you and I were offered jobs for Manchester United, I promise you we're signing the contract before they even put it in front of us. All right? Yeah. So, I think Richard Arnold's done really well. And in that sit down with the fans, though, he indirectly criticized Ed Woodward. He highlighted, do you want me interfering with the manager? Do you want me interfering with the recruitment network and the scouts? He acknowledged what his role was. And the role of a CEO is to make sure everything below him is performing to its potential. I think quietly, Richard Arnold's done a really good job.
Yeah, look, it's hard to argue. Obviously, that needs to be a good job is over time, especially at a club like Manchester United. But in terms of the short term, look, there are a lot of criticisms. You looked at the way we went about some business in the January transfer window, I think calls for huge criticism, and it's potentially put us in a bad situation in January. So I would label a lot of that potentially at Richard Arnold. Now, does he sort of deflect that off to Jim Murder? I'm not sure, but obviously a lot better than under Ed Woodward's stewardship. But the last point here before we do wrap up, George here, we'll be doing any deadline day streams. Let us know when deadline day is or the deadline actually ends. And if my work schedule potentially fits around it, Manchester United are linked with a player, maybe we will go live for those last hour or so. So, George, send us a message when you think deadline day does close Sydney time, and we'll definitely do that if I'm off work. But, Larry, as I said, we'll bring you a thing about Erik ten Hag and why he'll make Manchester United great again. And I think I'll do something on why Lissandro Martinez is a cult hero, because, my God, he's more than a cult hero. If he scores a goal, Lissandro Martinez scores a goal at Wembley against Newcastle, I think the statue petition should commence straight away.
Yeah.
I'll just take yes as the correct answer. I love him. Who do you love more, Lissandro Martinez or Erik ten Hag? It's a hard one.
Erik ten Hag.
Yeah. Just out of respect. I think a lot of us, Lissandro Martinez may be on the side, but out of respect.
Martinez is the guy I want to go on the piss with. And if I'm in a brawl getting mugged, I think I want Martinez next to me. He'll go up to the 6'5" guy and he'll punch him in the face, even if he won't win.
Do you hear what he calls? He can't pronounce Wout Weghorst's name. Do you know what he calls Wout Weghorst?
What?
Bobo.
That's great. Nothing like a big hard man being called Bobo.
I've read that on Twitter. If that's correct or if it's accurate, I'm not sure, but I'll run with
it. Do we build a statue or a garden gnome for Martinez?
George, he is there, but not a bad one there, George. But I'll give you a timeout. I'll send Lissandro Martinez a 2-foot. Yeah. But Larry, this, as I said, it was Nottingham Forest preview, supposed to go for 5 or 10 minutes. We've gone 59 minutes, so hopefully everyone did enjoy that. Really appreciate everyone's interaction in the comments. Really good chat today. Obviously, we went a bit off topic, but I did enjoy that chat, Larry. So make sure you are subscribed. Plenty of content throughout the week. Make sure you sort of help us on our way to 1,500 subscribers. Please do leave a like on your way out. And Larry, we'll hear from you in a day or two.
Pleasure, mate. Cheers to you. Cheers to all those in the comments, and we'll see you in a bit.
Always. Have a good one.